Have you ever felt, in a quiet moment, that life could be so much more than the routines and patterns that seem to trap you? That subtle, almost imperceptible sense that you are meant for something beyond what your eyes see, beyond the schedules, the deadlines, the endless to-do lists that keep your mind in a constant loop? That feeling is not random. It is the whisper of a new timeline calling you forward, a reality where your inner desires, your deepest truths, and your highest self are no longer waiting in some distant future but are available in the present moment. This whisper, this gentle nudge of consciousness, is what I want to explore with you today. It is not a loud shift, not an explosion that tears through your life, but a subtle movement, a minute realignment in the way you think, feel, and perceive. And yet, it is powerful enough to open doors to realities you may have only imagined in your dreams. Most people live their entire lives unaware that such a shift is possible because they are focused on what is tangible, what seems solid, what seems real. But reality in its deepest sense is far more fluid than we are taught. Every thought, every feeling, every intention nudges the universe in a direction that is in harmony, or disharmony, with our deepest selves. Imagine for a moment your current reality as a river, flowing steadily in one direction. Most people are content to drift along, reacting to the current, allowing external events to define their experience. But what if you could step to the edge of the river, find a hidden stream, and gently place your hand on it? What if you could feel a new current, quieter and subtler, one that leads to a destination aligned with your true purpose? That is the essence of a subtle shift. It does not scream for your attention, it whispers. It does not push you, it guides you. And it begins within the quiet recesses of your mind and heart. Contrast is essential to understanding this process. You may recognize the old self within you, the one that clings to fear, doubts every opportunity, worries endlessly about what could go wrong. That version of you has its own comfort, predictable and safe, but it also keeps you stuck. And then there is the new self, the self who begins to notice the whispers, who is willing to trust that reality is more malleable than it appears, who starts to feel the pull toward alignment without fully understanding why. This contrast is not meant to shame or force change. It is meant to awaken awareness. The more clearly you see the old patterns, the more easily you can step into the new current, into the new timeline that has been quietly waiting for you. What makes this shift subtle is its invisibility. You might not notice it immediately. It could appear as a small, sudden insight during a quiet moment of reflection. Perhaps it is a chance encounter, a fleeting thought, a dream that lingers in your mind longer than usual. These are the signs, the markers of the universe nudging you toward alignment. And the remarkable part is that once you begin to notice these shifts, the universe begins to respond in kind. Opportunities, people, and synchronicities align as if the world itself has begun to anticipate your readiness. The key is awareness, the gentle yet profound willingness to pause and observe your inner state. To see where your attention lingers, to notice where your energy flows, and to ask yourself, am I living in alignment with the life I truly desire? This is not a question that demands immediate answers, but one that opens the door to possibility. The subtle shift does not force reality to change. It simply allows you to change the way you move through it. And when you begin to move differently, when your vibration, your focus, and your emotional energy realign even slightly, the current of reality begins to bend in your favor. By the end of this journey, you will understand that this subtle shift is not an abstract concept, not a distant spiritual theory, but a tangible, experiential reality. It is the bridge between the life you are living and the life you are meant to live. And it begins right here, right now, in this very moment, with the awareness that your next thought, your next feeling, and your next choice can place you gently on a new timeline, one where your highest potential is not only possible but inevitable. To understand how subtle shifts place us on a new timeline, it helps to explore both the science and the spiritual dimensions of reality. At first glance, these two domains may seem unrelated, one rooted in measurement, formulas, and observation, the other in intuition, energy, and consciousness. Yet when we look closer, we see that they are two sides of the same coin, offering complementary insights into how our lives can transform. Quantum physics has revealed that reality is not as fixed as it seems. Particles do not behave in isolation, they respond to observation. In other words, consciousness, your awareness, is not a passive witness but an active participant in shaping the world around you. What this means is both profound and empowering. The very act of noticing, imagining, and feeling a possibility begins to influence the unfolding of your life. On the spiritual side, the idea of subtle shifts has been understood for centuries. Ancient wisdom traditions speak of alignment, resonance, and vibrational harmony. They teach that everything in existence, our thoughts, emotions, and intentions, is energy. And like any form of energy, It vibrates, attracting experiences and circumstances that match its frequency. The old self, steeped in fear, scarcity, and self-doubt, vibrates at a lower frequency, keeping life limited and predictable. The new self, curious, open, and aligned with one's higher purpose, vibrates higher, naturally drawing experiences that feel expansive, joyful, and synchronistic. The intersection of these perspectives, scientific and spiritual, creates a fascinating understanding of the subtle shift. It is neither mystical nor random, it is a natural consequence of alignment. When your internal state, your beliefs, and your focus begin to move in harmony with your desired reality, you begin to notice small changes. Maybe it is a conversation that leads to an unexpected opportunity, or a sudden insight that clarifies a long-standing challenge. These are not coincidences. They are the universe responding to the subtle realignment of your consciousness. Contrast again plays a vital role in this understanding. Consider the old reality. It is reactive, driven by external events, shaped by fear, and limited by habitual thinking. Every action and reaction reinforces the patterns that keep you stuck. The new timeline, on the other hand, is proactive. It begins internally through deliberate observation, conscious choice, and emotional calibration. Instead of responding to the world with tension and expectation, you begin to respond with awareness, trust, and alignment. This does not mean challenges vanish, but the way you navigate them shifts. What once felt overwhelming now becomes manageable, even guided, as if life itself has learned to flow with you rather than against you. To make this more tangible, let us explore the mechanism in practical terms. Imagine your consciousness as a radio tuning into frequencies. The old self is tuned to channels filled with worry, comparison, and limitation. The subtle shift is like slowly turning the dial to a station that plays clarity, intuition, and possibility. At first, the change is nearly imperceptible. You may hear only faint tones of inspiration or brief moments of alignment. But the more you tune in, the clearer the signal becomes, and soon your entire experience resonates with the new frequency. The science of quantum reality tells us that these micro-adjustments matter. Even the smallest change in observation or focus can ripple outward, influencing the trajectory of events in ways that seem almost magical but are rooted in consistent energetic principles. Emotion is another critical element. Thoughts alone can guide the current, but emotions give them momentum. Fear, doubt, and frustration weigh the current down, while love, curiosity, and trust accelerate it. This is why practices like mindful observation, gratitude, and visualization are so powerful. They align both thought and emotion, creating a coherent signal that life can respond to. When the mind and heart move together, subtle shifts become inevitable. When they are misaligned, progress is slowed, often imperceptibly. One of the most remarkable aspects of this process is that it does not require dramatic external changes. You do not need to quit your job, move to a new city, or radically reinvent your life to experience the shift. Instead, it begins internally, the recognition that your inner state, your attention, focus, and emotional resonance, is the most fertile ground for transformation. Once that internal realignment occurs, external changes naturally follow. People, circumstances, and opportunities start to appear as if drawn by an unseen magnet, perfectly suited to the new version of you. Yet, it is essential to remain patient. Subtle shifts are subtle for a reason. They work quietly without the pressure of immediate results. Impatience or forceful attempts to control outcomes often interfere with the natural flow of alignment. Instead, the practice is one of awareness, curiosity, and gentle guidance. Notice where your energy drifts, where your attention lingers, and which choices feel aligned versus reactive. With time, these small, consistent adjustments accumulate, bending reality toward the timeline where your highest potential can manifest. As you begin to see these patterns, a profound realization often emerges. The subtle shift is not about escaping your current reality, but about seeing it differently. It is about noticing the infinite possibilities that were always present, but previously hidden by old habits of thought and perception. And this is the doorway into the new timeline, not through effort or struggle, but through awareness, resonance, and trust. The science of observation, the spirituality of vibration, and the art of emotional calibration all converge to guide you there. When you truly grasp this, you begin to understand that the universe is not something outside you to be manipulated or controlled. It is a reflection of your inner state, a mirror responding to the energy, attention, and intention you bring to it. By consciously tuning your inner world, you naturally step into experiences that reflect the reality you desire, as if life itself has learned to flow in harmony with the subtle shift you have embraced. Recognizing the subtle shift within you is one of the most profound steps in stepping onto a new timeline. Unlike dramatic, sudden transformations that demand external changes, the subtle shift begins quietly, almost imperceptibly, within your inner landscape. It may manifest as a small nudge in your intuition, a fleeting moment of clarity, or a deep sense of knowing that something in your life is about to change. Often, it is so gentle that it passes unnoticed unless you are paying close attention. This is why awareness is the first key, the willingness to observe without judgment the currents of your own thoughts, feelings, and inner impulses. At first, you may notice subtle emotional cues. Perhaps a small situation triggers a reaction in you, and for the first time, you pause before responding. Instead of immediately falling into old patterns of fear, anger, or anxiety, you catch yourself, noticing how your body, mind, and energy respond. This pause is not insignificant. It is a doorway into your new self. Every time you observe rather than react, you are practicing alignment. You are beginning to shift your frequency, even if imperceptibly, toward the reality you desire. Synchronicities often accompany this internal recognition. You might meet someone at the exact moment you need guidance, or a chance event seems almost orchestrated to provide clarity. These coincidences are not random. They are markers that the subtle shift is beginning to take effect. When you notice them, it strengthens your trust in the process, reinforcing the idea that you are not alone in navigating this transition. The universe, in subtle ways, is always responding to your inner state, offering gentle confirmation that you are moving in the right direction. Stories of small, seemingly mundane experiences can illuminate this process. Perhaps you once struggled with self-doubt, constantly comparing yourself to others and feeling inadequate. One day a thought crosses your mind: what if I am exactly where I am meant to be? It is a small thought, almost laughable in its simplicity, but it carries enormous weight. It marks a subtle shift in perspective, an opening that allows new possibilities to enter your awareness. Over time, these small shifts accumulate, and you begin to notice that your reality is no longer rigid and predetermined. It is flexible, responsive, and aligned with your inner state. The emotional contrast between the old self and the new self becomes increasingly apparent. The old self fears change, clings to comfort zones, and seeks validation externally. The new self is curious, resilient, and willing to trust the unseen currents guiding life. Recognizing this contrast is not meant to create guilt or pressure. It is an invitation to notice the areas where you are already growing and where you can gently release patterns that no longer serve you. Every moment of awareness strengthens your ability to move fluidly into the new timeline, reinforcing the alignment between your inner reality and the world around you. Intuition is another critical indicator. You may begin to feel subtle nudges, inner whispers that guide you toward choices that feel expansive rather than constrictive. These intuitive signals are often drowned out by the noise of habit, fear, or overthinking, which is why mindfulness practices, such as quiet reflection, journaling, or meditation, can enhance your ability to perceive them. When you act in accordance with these subtle cues, even in small ways, you are confirming and accelerating the shift. Your alignment becomes tangible, and the new timeline starts to feel not only possible but natural. It is also common to notice a change in the way you relate to your environment and the people around you. You may find that negative situations no longer affect you as intensely, or that relationships that once drained you begin to shift, reflecting your internal transformation. These changes are subtle yet profound, demonstrating that the new timeline is not a fantasy but a lived experience already beginning to unfold. Each moment of emotional clarity, every recognition of synchronicity, and each alignment with your intuition serves as evidence that you are stepping into a reality that resonates with your highest potential. Fear and resistance often appear alongside recognition, which is natural. The subtle shift is unfamiliar, and the old self instinctively resists what it does not fully understand. You might feel doubt: am I imagining this? Or, is this really possible? These feelings are not obstacles, they are opportunities to deepen your awareness. By observing fear without succumbing to it, you strengthen your alignment. Resistance is a signal that something within you is being stretched, a gentle reminder that transformation often requires patience and compassion toward yourself. Visualization and reflection can amplify the recognition of subtle shifts. Take a few moments each day to imagine the life you desire in vivid detail, noticing the feelings, colors, textures, and sensations associated with it. As you immerse yourself in this internal experience, you reinforce the energetic patterns that correspond to your desired reality. The shift is not about forcing external outcomes but about cultivating an inner environment where the new timeline naturally manifests. Over time, these practices create a feedback loop. Recognition leads to alignment, alignment leads to subtle manifestation, and subtle manifestation reinforces recognition. Perhaps most importantly, recognizing the subtle shift requires trust. Trust in yourself, trust in the process, and trust in the universe. It is not about controlling every event or outcome but about observing, aligning, and responding with presence. The subtle shift is quiet, persistent, and gentle, yet it carries the power to transform the trajectory of your life. It teaches that you are not a passive participant in reality, you are an active co-creator, capable of choosing alignment over fear, possibility over limitation, and flow over resistance. As you practice this recognition, you will begin to notice a profound sense of liberation. The new timeline is not distant or theoretical. It is emerging here and now, reflected in small shifts in your thoughts, emotions, and experiences. By cultivating awareness, trusting your intuition, and embracing the contrast between old and new, you step fully into a life that feels expansive, authentic, and aligned. Recognition is the bridge. It transforms subtle awareness into conscious participation, turning fleeting moments of clarity into a lived reality of possibility and growth. Ultimately, this process is deeply personal yet universally accessible. Every individual has the capacity to notice these shifts, to feel the pull of a higher alignment, and to respond in a way that anchors them firmly on a new timeline. It is in these quiet recognitions, these gentle awakenings, that transformation begins, not as a dramatic event, but as a natural unfolding, a graceful realignment with your highest self and your most expansive reality. Once you have recognized the subtle shift within yourself, the next step is learning how to consciously activate and anchor it. Recognition alone is transformative, but when combined with deliberate, aligned action, it begins to solidify the new timeline into your lived reality. This is where intention meets practice, where awareness becomes tangible, and where your inner shift begins to ripple outward into your life. The process is not about forcing change or controlling outcomes. It is about harmonizing your energy, focus, and emotions so that the universe naturally aligns with your highest potential. Activation begins with clarity. It is essential to define, at least internally, the version of your life you wish to inhabit. This does not require meticulous planning or rigid structures, but a clear sense of direction, a vision that feels expansive and emotionally resonant. The mind often wants precision, but the universe responds to alignment, not micromanagement. When your internal landscape, your thoughts, feelings, and beliefs, resonates with the life you desire, it creates an energetic signal that guides opportunities, synchronicities, and people toward you. This is why visualization is a cornerstone of activating the subtle shift. By imagining your desired reality with all its sensory richness, you engage not only the mind but also the emotions, reinforcing the energetic patterns that correspond to your new timeline. Emotional calibration is equally important. The subtle shift is accelerated by feelings, and emotions carry far more weight than intellectual understanding alone. When you allow yourself to feel the joy, peace, confidence, or freedom of your desired reality, even before it fully manifests, you are effectively rehearsing the new timeline. This emotional rehearsal sends a clear signal to your consciousness and the universe that you are ready to live in alignment. Conversely, lingering in fear, doubt, or resistance can slow the process, no matter how clear your intentions may be. The key is not to suppress negative feelings but to observe them without attachment and intentionally return your focus to alignment. Daily practices help anchor the new timeline. Small, consistent actions, whether meditation, journaling, mindful observation, or gratitude rituals, create a structured energetic framework that supports the shift. These practices do not need to be complex. In fact, simplicity is often more effective. The goal is to cultivate an internal environment where alignment is natural and effortless. When these practices become habitual, they act as anchors, stabilizing the subtle shift and ensuring that it persists even amidst external chaos or challenge. Over time, these anchors become embedded in your energetic system, making the new timeline feel increasingly tangible and familiar. Another essential aspect of activation is releasing old patterns that no longer serve you. The subtle shift is as much about what you let go of as what you embrace. Limiting beliefs, habitual fears, and self-sabotaging behaviors create resistance that slows the flow of alignment. By observing these patterns and consciously choosing not to feed them with attention or energy, you create space for the new reality to emerge. Contrast again becomes a powerful teacher here. Noticing the tension between old habits and the desired flow highlights where alignment is being blocked and where conscious effort is most needed. Anchoring the shift also involves trusting the unseen. The subtle timeline is not something you can fully grasp with logic alone. It requires faith in the process, confidence in your own inner guidance, and openness to the signs and synchronicities the universe provides. Trust does not mean passivity. It means moving forward with intention while remaining receptive to guidance. When trust is present, the new timeline unfolds with less struggle, more grace, and a sense of natural ease. The process becomes a dance rather than a battle, a co-creative flow rather than a forced manipulation of circumstances. Integration is the final, crucial step. As you activate and anchor the shift, it is essential to embody it fully in your daily life. Your thoughts, words, actions, and even posture reflect your alignment, reinforcing the new reality at every level. Small decisions, choosing how to respond to challenges, which relationships to nurture, how to spend your energy, become expressions of the new timeline. Integration ensures that the subtle shift does not remain an abstract idea but becomes a lived experience, reflected consistently in your external world. The more fully you inhabit this reality internally, the more effortlessly it manifests externally. Practical techniques can support this integration. For instance, setting intentional alignment moments during your day, brief pauses to check in with your emotions, visualize your desired outcomes, or express gratitude, can continuously reinforce the shift. Likewise, consciously noticing when you fall back into old patterns allows you to gently course correct, strengthening your connection to the new timeline. The combination of awareness, emotional calibration, intention, and daily practice creates a powerful feedback loop, accelerating both recognition and manifestation. It is also worth noting that patience is a key component of activation. The subtle shift is subtle for a reason. It unfolds quietly and gradually. Impatience or forceful attempts to control outcomes can disrupt the natural flow. By cultivating patience and observing the incremental progress, you strengthen your trust and reinforce alignment. The universe is remarkably responsive to sustained, coherent signals. When your focus, emotion, and intention remain steady, the new timeline consolidates more rapidly. Ultimately, activating and anchoring the subtle shift is about living in a state of conscious alignment. It is about noticing the whispers, responding to the cues, and creating a consistent internal environment that matches your highest self. When you combine clarity, emotional resonance, daily practice, release of old patterns, trust, and integration, the subtle shift transforms from a fleeting insight into a tangible, embodied reality. Life begins to flow differently. Opportunities emerge with ease, challenges become manageable, and experiences that once felt impossible now appear natural. This is the profound beauty of the subtle shift. It is gentle, yet it has the power to redefine your entire existence. It does not demand dramatic external upheaval or sacrifice. It asks only for attention, intention, and alignment. And as you anchor this shift, you realize that reality itself is far more flexible than you ever imagined. The new timeline is not a distant dream. It is already emerging, quietly and gracefully, in the way you think, feel, and move through your life. By embracing this activation process, you step fully into your power, co-creating a life that reflects not only your desires but the deepest truths of who you are. As we arrive at this moment, it becomes clear that the journey of the subtle shift is not about escaping your life or creating some distant fantasy. It is about integration, bringing the insights, awakenings, and realignments you have cultivated into every aspect of your daily existence. The new timeline is not a separate world. It is a reflection of the alignment you hold within. Every thought, feeling, and action now carries the potential to reinforce this new reality, gently shaping the world around you in accordance with your highest self. Integration begins with reflection. Take time to observe how your perceptions have shifted. Notice the small ways in which your reactions, emotions, and decisions differ from the old patterns that once dominated your life. Perhaps you approach challenges with curiosity rather than fear, or maybe your relationships feel lighter, more authentic, more aligned with your true values. These changes, while subtle, are profound indicators that the new timeline is taking root. By consciously acknowledging them, you reinforce the shift and create a strong energetic foundation for further growth. It is also important to carry forward the practices that have supported the shift. Visualization, mindful observation, emotional calibration, and alignment exercises are not one-time activities. They are ongoing tools that help maintain and deepen your connection to your desired reality. Even brief daily moments of intentional focus can act as anchors, continually guiding you back to the frequency of your new timeline. Over time, these practices become woven into the fabric of your life, making alignment effortless, natural, and deeply fulfilling. Contrast continues to serve as a teacher in this stage. Reflect on where the old self would have reacted with resistance, fear, or doubt, and notice how your new responses feel expansive, aligned, and empowered. This awareness is not meant to create judgment but to highlight the remarkable progress you have made. By observing this contrast, you cultivate gratitude for the transformation itself and reinforce your confidence in the subtle shift's power. It is a gentle reminder that every choice, no matter how small, matters in the co-creation of your reality. Trust remains central to integration. The new timeline unfolds most gracefully when you maintain faith in the process, even when external circumstances appear slow or uncertain. Patience and trust are the invisible threads that connect your inner alignment with the manifestation of external reality. When you trust, you allow life to move in synchrony with your intentions rather than resisting or forcing outcomes. This balance of active participation and receptive surrender is the hallmark of living fully in alignment with the subtle shift. Finally, the conclusion of this journey is not an ending but a continuation, a call to embody the awareness, the practices, and the alignment consistently. The subtle shift is now part of your lived experience, a quiet yet potent force guiding you toward your highest potential. By integrating these insights into your thoughts, emotions, and actions, you cultivate a life that feels expansive, authentic, and aligned. Every moment becomes an opportunity to reinforce the new timeline, to live as the person you are becoming, and to experience the joy, freedom, and synchronicity that naturally arise when consciousness and reality move together in harmony. In essence, the subtle shift is both a process and a state of being. It teaches that transformation does not need to be loud or forceful. It can be quiet, gradual, and deeply internal. By recognizing, activating, and integrating this shift, you step into a new way of living, one where your inner awareness shapes your external reality, where alignment replaces struggle, and where possibility replaces limitation. The universe responds not to effort but to coherence, and through this subtle yet profound journey, you have aligned yourself with a reality that reflects your highest truth. And so, as you move forward, remember this. Every thought, every feeling, every small act of awareness is a step onto your new timeline. The shift is subtle, yes, but it is powerful, persistent, and inevitable when nurtured with intention, trust, and presence. You are now the conscious architect of your life, and the path you walk is not determined by chance but by the alignment you cultivate moment by moment, thought by thought, and breath by breath.